This is the Humans of Gaming podcast, an open and honest conversation about games, life, and belief.
Thanks for listening to the Humans Gaming Podcast. What you're about to hear is a little bit different from what we normally do on this podcast. You're about to hear a whole bunch of short interviews with game designers from PAX South. This is the second part of a two-part series of interviews that we conducted while at Penny Arcade South in San Antonio, Texas. On this episode, you'll mostly hear from me, but you'll also hear from Stephanie Skiles, who does some of these interviews. She's one of our editors at Love Thy Nerd. But on this episode, we talked to Lizzie Funkhauser, who's making a Walking Dead card game for Skybound. She's also one of the leaders of a board game group on Facebook called Board Game Spotlight. So if you're into board games, it's a lovely community. I follow it. I listen to it. I go watch their live streams, and I participate in that community on the regular. So go check it out. You'll also hear from Jungwoo Kim, who's with Kit Fox, and they are publishing Boyfriend Dungeon, and they also put out a game called The Shrouded Isle, which is fascinating. So I really enjoyed talking to him. You'll hear from Nathan Shorts, who's working on a new Toe Jam and Earl game. You'll hear from Mike Rose, who's with No More Robots. They publish killer games. In fact, they're publishing the game I'm most excited about probably from this year, which is Hypnospace Outlaw, which will be out soon. You'll hear from Edgar Castro and Sam McCulley, and also from Ape Tribe Games, all of which are putting out some great games, working on some really great games that we're excited for you to hear about. And then finally, you'll hear from Brett Pennings, who's working on what was probably the most fun game I played while at PAX South, and that is a game called Mage Quit. So definitely go check these folks out. All these people that we interview them because we think they're interesting people doing great work in the industry. They're all worthy of checking out and following. So check our show notes for more information about where you can follow these people and the work that they're doing. That said, I hope you really enjoy this episode, and we'll see you again next week. So without further ado, here's part 2 for PAX South 2019 interviews. From Love Thy Nerd here with Lizzie Funkhauser.
Hi.
And she is a game designer, and what else do you do?
Well, I run the Board Game Spotlight with my husband Derek, and so we do live streams and interviews, and we do reviews, previews, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, and that's on Facebook, right?
Yes, that is on Facebook. Sometimes we stream to Twitch if the internet is working with us. We also upload videos to YouTube. We have an Instagram and a Twitter.
Yeah. And so I watch you guys' streams all the time because they're super fun, and the community of Board Game Spotlight is really wonderful. I feel like sometimes board gamers can be,
elitist. Elitist is probably the best word, where, oh, you like that game, or, oh, that one's not very good. Like, you should have like a more refined palette. You should like something better.
Yeah.
Like, just let people enjoy things. If what they like is not what you like, that's totally fine. Not everyone has to have the same style games.
Right. And so that's what I was going to say about Board Game Spotlight. I think it's the rare, board game community where it feels like people are just, cool to each other. Nice, and nobody judges. For the most part, I mean, occasionally, for the most part, people don't judge each other for what they like, and it's just a really, lovely community. How did y'all get
into that?
Yeah, I mean, how did you manage to create a community that was so positive?
Well, Board Game Spotlight was initially James Hudson's brainchild. He started it, and then he brought Derek in as just a part-time. He saw Derek in all the other groups, and Derek was doing exactly what he wanted, just encouraging people, saying, hey, if you like this, check this out. Oh, you like that game? That's awesome. Good for you type thing. So Derek started writing, doing stuff, and then I already was a board gamer, but we started to, try and do live streams and get involved that way. And then James with Druid City got bought by Skybound, so he ended up getting a little busy. He let Derek and I kind of take over the day-to-day Board Game Spotlight, and so we just decided to kind of grow it as much as we can. We added the interviews, and we just have been trying to create this positive force in the board game industry, and letting people enjoy the games that they do, trying to introduce them to other games that they would like, and just trying to be kind and loving towards everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love it. And I am a part of Board Game Spotlight. I encourage people to go check out Board Game Spotlight on Facebook. It's a really great community. But I also want to talk to you about your game because you're a game designer now.
I guess I officially am, yeah.
How does that feel?
A little weird.
Yeah.
It still doesn't feel real, but me and Derek created this Walking Dead Something to Fear game that is going to be coming out under the Skybound label, and that is hopefully going to be out end of February, beginning of March.
Yeah. So your first game, and you're working with this really small IP that hardly anybody knows about. No, that's really cool. How does it feel to your first game gets to be
The Walking Dead
thing?
It does not feel real. A lot of people have asked us, how'd you get The Walking Dead? How'd you do that? And I'm like, well, Skybound owns The Walking Dead. It's a comic book first before it was a TV show, so a lot of people don't know that. But it just kind of honestly fell into our lap. Derek was working with James to create a game, and it was for Skybound. It was actually for another IP that is not as well known, and then that kind of fell through, but James was like, this is a really good game. Why don't we reskin it, make it The Walking Dead, kind of change some things around, and we did. We showed it to them, and they loved it, and I mean, that was a little over a year ago, like last fall, and we've been working on getting the art, refining all the cards and the powers, and we finally have a pretty much finished product,
Yeah, that's cool, yeah, and I would tell people, like, go read those Walking Dead comics. You can get a compendium, and plow through a whole bunch of...
They're the comics, I mean, they're not like very different from the show, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the comics that's not included in the show just because, you only have so many episodes and you can only follow so many people before it gets a little overwhelming on the screen, but books are always better. Read, kids.
And I'm not saying that, I'm sure the TV show is awesome. I watched the first two seasons and I liked it, but those comics, man, like... I'm
a book person at heart too, so if I can read something over watching it, I'm always going to pick reading.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so let's talk about the game. Walk me through The Walking Dead Something to Fear. What is it? What makes it unique?
Sure. So there are 6 decks, so you can play 2 to 6 players, and there's 9 characters in it. Everyone has the same 9 characters, and they each have a special ability on them. So you get to pick one and put it face down, everyone reveals it, and then you go highest card to lowest card, and then if they have an ability that is applicable during that round, you can do it. So it's kind of like a set collection game where you are trying to collect sets of cards. So we have things like the walkers, you're trying to get the most of those, or we have the governor, who is 20 points, but if you get him a second time, he's 10. If you get him a third time, he's 5. So if he's also, he resolves ties, so it's kind of like the first player token type thing. So if you're being really greedy and you keep taking that first player thing, you're going to earn less points for it. We also have Negan in there, obviously. Let me get him out. So he is 10, negative 20, and then 40. So he's a real gamble. And if you want to get him, because he can be pretty powerful, but he can be really punishing as well. We have like the Saviors. They are 8, 16, and 32 points. Cool. So they're pretty good. So you are trying to collect sets of games, but every round one card is going to escape. So they have numbers in the top right corner. So the more powerful the card that escapes, the more damage is going to be done to the group. So you're trying to manage that damage while you are trying to collect cards. So if you're letting real powerful cards escape, we find like the Walking Horde. So this is 3 walkers, it's also wild, and it deals the person 2 damage if they have it. But if you let it escape, it's 5 damage. So if at the end of 9 rounds, the damage that has escaped is over 20, everyone in the group dies, so no one is going to get to score. If you have personal damage, because there are wounds in the deck too, if someone gives you a wound and you add that wound and like the damage from the walker, and you personally are over 20 but everyone else is under, you get to die, everyone else gets to score. So we kind of call it a co-opetition where you're trying to work together so that not everyone dies, but you still want to win. So.
I like that because I think it encourages some unique player interaction.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas you're not just thinking about how can I beat everybody by getting all those sets. You're also like, hey, we can't all die here. We've got to manage some things together, work together a little bit.
But I mean, we say it can be as mean or as nice as you want it to be. So if you have a group of guys and they just want to take each other down, they're just passing wounds back and forth, you can. If you're playing maybe with a family of older kids or something, and you just want to be nice and let all the zeros escape and just play nice with each other and see who can get the most points, that works too. So you can really tailor it to your group.
If you had to narrow it down to one thing, what do you hope players gain from their time playing the game?
Well, we really want it to reach the Walking Dead fan base and people who are not naturally gamers. So I hope that people will pick up this game, learn to play it, really enjoy it, and then maybe dive deeper into the board game hobby.
Yeah.
And for people who are already gamers, I hope that they just really enjoy it. It's something that they can use to introduce friends and family to the hobby.
Yeah, definitely. Great. And then last couple questions I like to ask designers, people in the industry. Why do you make games? What drives you to do this and be a part of the industry?
It's just fun to be creative and throw things around. I mean, Derek and I have a lot of ideas. He actually has a couple other games in the works. It's a creative outlet. One time he was like, I'm going to make a better version of Catan, and he started working on a game. And so sometimes, yeah. So, I mean, the game ends up, it's like absolutely nothing like Catan, but that was like his initial spark. It's just fun to play around with things and ideas, and the art for the game is always a lot of fun. So we know a lot of artists, so we'll reach out to them once we have a project that's substantial and get them working on some stuff. It's just the creative process, I guess. You know, just have all these ideas and being able to share them with someone, whether it goes somewhere or not.
Yeah, great. And then one last question. Why do games, what would you say to somebody who's kind of skeptical of board games, kind of thinks maybe they're a waste of time or something? Why do board games matter? Why do tabletop games matter?
To me, it's people come together and they put down their phones and you're talking face to face and you're building relationships and just becoming closer friends. For me and Derek, we started gaming real heavily when we were at Fort Irwin. We were stationed. He was in the military. We were stationed out there. It's a really isolated post. We didn't know anyone out there, so we got together with some friends. We started gaming, and we really became like a family. We not only gamed together, but we celebrated birthdays and Thanksgiving and holidays together. So we became really tight knit and just like depended on each other. When one of the families had a kid, we were there supporting them because they didn't have anyone else, and the gaming group was how we got together.
That's great. Yeah, board games really can bring people together and give you some games force us to get our guard down and let people see what we're really like.
In the military they had a lot of training, they were gone a lot of time. It's very stressful, so gaming let them have a release, enjoy, kick back, and not have to worry about the stress of their job.
Great, I love it. Well, The Walking Dead, Something to Fear looks great, and Board Game Spotlight is also a wonderful community you should definitely go check out. Thanks so much, Lizzie, for your time.
Thank you for an interview. This is so much fun.
Oh, and we can see this pretty soon, right?
Yes.
It's coming out very soon.
It should be out hopefully end of February, beginning of March. We're just waiting on getting the game over from China.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thanks again. Yeah. Tell me your name again.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
My name is Jong-woo Kim.
Okay.
And I'm a co-founder and a programmer designer at Kitbox Games.
Cool. Yeah. And so you were telling me earlier about some of your games. Give me what have you guys put out so far?
We put out Shattered Planet, which was our first project. It was like a roguelite game with a space exploration elements. The one that we're most known for is Moon Hunters. It was a co-op action game set in a fantasy version of ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
That's also a bit of like a personality test.
Yeah.
So the small choices you make changes how the world will remember your hero at the end.
Right. Yeah. And then you guys here, you're showing Boyfriend Dungeon and Shrouded Isle, right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Tell me about Boyfriend Dungeon.
Boyfriend Dungeon is a dungeon crawler mixed with a dating sim. So you are just a random person, really, and who explores dungeons in like a kind of a modern setting and discovers these swords that are actually people.
Yeah.
And so you rescue them from the dungeons and bring them back to the surface, and then you can date them.
And you can date your swords.
You can date your swords, and the stronger your relationship becomes, the stronger your weapon becomes. So there's a bit of a synergy there.
And they're all boyfriends. There's no girlfriend swords.
Oh, there are totally girlfriend swords, and it's a very inclusive game. You can define yourself however you wish.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and there's even a cat that you can hang out with as well. So yeah, it's something for everybody. So
yeah, there you go. Cool. Okay, and so then the one we were just talking about a minute ago, this very dark cult kind of sim. Tell me about Shrouded Isle.
So the Shrouded Isle is a human sacrifice cult simulator. You are the high priest of a small island village that worships a slumbering dark god. And the prophecies say that he will awaken in 5 years. So in preparation, you are trying to raise the 5 values of your religion: ignorance, fervor, obedience, and so forth. And also maintain the loyalty of the bickering 5 great houses of the village.
Yeah.
and make a seasonal human sacrifice in his name.
As one does.
As one does.
Yeah, gotcha. And you were saying one of the kind of goals of this was to explore why people make evil decisions.
That's correct.
Have you any insights that came from developing this, or from how players have interacted with it on that?
There are two. The first one is how quickly someone seems to embrace their inner tyrant.
Yeah.
When I watch someone do a fresh playtest of the game, the first season or the first turn or so, the players are kind of reluctant to take decisions that are expedient, so to speak.
Right.
And they try to act according to their own moral code. But the second turn onwards, I find that they completely embrace their role and do what is necessary for the cult's leadership to survive, which is a bit distressing to discover, because what I really wanted to happen is for there to be more of a moral quandary, on the long term. But in order to succeed at the game or even survive at the game, you have to embrace the cult's values. So you wouldn't normally want to promote ignorance. You wouldn't normally want to promote excessive discipline or penitence, but the game requires you to if you want to survive. And therefore, players just go with it, just dive all the way in. The other thing that I noticed was, so this was shortly after the release of the game, and so for clarity, the cult does not represent any real-world organizations. That was never the intent. But what we found was that people would often project onto the cult various organizations they were dissatisfied with.
Right.
So in a game dev context, some of our colleagues felt that what's happening in the cult is actually representative of what might happen at a AAA studio, for instance. Other people were just looking at the current political climate and so forth. Yeah. So
hard not to, I guess. To some degree. Yeah. So if you had to narrow it down to one thing, what do you hope players gain from their experience playing the game?
I didn't realize that's what it was.
More than anything else, what I think players gain from this is this awareness that often it's something structural about an organization that drives someone to take what might be ostensibly evil decisions. And the challenge is, if you were in that position, could you really do things differently? If the reward mechanisms of that organization, that cult, is such that you have to kill someone every season, how do you resist that? How do you retain your own identity, your own beliefs is the fundamental question of the game.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you said it was almost kind of distressing how quickly people dive into that sort of just making expedient decisions just to succeed, making evil decisions essentially. And it almost sounded like you didn't want that to happen in a way, but it sounds like there's something valuable there is value in doing that, or in a digital space where it's safe, I think.
Exactly.
So it's kind of interesting, because you make a game and you hand it over to the player, and you're sort of, you can't control that experience completely. What's that been like?
It's been fascinating. There have been some surprises, definitely, but there's also some sense of responsibility ultimately, in that this is a game that I intended to make, and I feel like I executed on my intentions quite well overall, in comparison, as far as what came out of it versus what was intended. At the same time, I do wonder, as creators, do we have responsibilities as far as did we really need to depict a cult that makes human sacrifices? Maybe that was an unnecessary thing for me to do, but it allowed me to explore a certain topic that that I'm fascinated by, and it allows players to do so as well.
I think it's fascinating. I mean, I love the risk.
Yeah, for sure.
That you're taking with this, it's pretty brilliant. I think, at least from a risk-taking perspective, which I totally respect. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, last question I like to ask designers is, why do you make games? What drives you to do this?
I make games because they are choice simulation engines, and maybe that's a bit tautological in a way. But what makes me curious is just the fundamental assumption about free will. If someone's put in a certain situation, can they really, like, is it really fair to say that they did their best, or like the choices that they made, like how much was it like driven by their own will versus just the circumstances dictating that choice for them?
Yeah.
And even just for myself, like I love playing a lot of like historical simulation games and just trying to see, well, like, you know, what if it went this way? Like, you know, what if, like, you know, we, like, something about the geopolitical situation was different, or like if this country survived, or so forth. And that gives me better appreciations for things that have happened and things that will, you know, happen in the future.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really enjoyed checking these out. And Boyfriend Dungeon, is that available now?
It's coming out in coming months and years, I guess. It's still very much in the middle of development,
Okay.
and there's no official release date at this
I couldn't
time.
remember on that one. Then Shattered Isles out and just came out on Switch.
Just
right?
came out on the Switch, yeah.
Cool. Anything else you'd mention that to look forward to in the future from your studio?
So we're publishing a bunch of projects right now. So we're showing a trailer for Six Ages, which is a prequel to King of Dragon Pass, which
Okay.
was an inspiration for the Shrouded Isle.
Okay, great. Oh, and that's here? You're showing
We're
showing a trailer?
on that screen, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'll check that out. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, this is Steph from Love Thy Nerd, and I'm here with Nathan Shorts, who is the lead artist,
Yes.
correct, on Toe Jam and Earl. Back in the groove. So how's the con been going for you?
Good. We've had a really good showing so far. Seats have been full the whole con so far, which is all we could ever ask for. So
Yeah, awesome.
very very good.
Oh, very cool. Are you excited about bringing Toe Jam and Earl back to the masses?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's been almost 28 years since the first one came out,
Yeah.
and more than a decade since the last iteration was released into the world. So it's been a while, and I think the world is primed for a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what do you think makes Toe Jam and Earl special?
I think part of it's the laid-back nature of it, and kind of, you know, aliens are usually depicted as like the enemy, and in this one it's more of they're friends, and you can kind of identify with them however you want.
Yeah.
They're kind of a blank slate almost.
Yeah.
It also the games kind of shine in their cooperativeness and kind of passive nature.
Yeah.
It's not a very violent game, which in this day and age it can kind of stand apart. That's where I think it kind of shines on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you hope that the player gets from the game, that they come out of the experience?
I'd say we hope that one of the things we've said from the beginning is if they come out having laughed and made a memory with someone, then we've done our job.
Yeah.
About halfway through development, we started laughing ourselves when we played the game, which we felt was a good sign. And that, like, we see smiles whenever we see people playing. So I think we're happy with where it's at now.
Yeah, I agree. It looks great. So why do you make games?
Sort of on a similar thought there. The reason I make games is to bring people together.
Yeah.
I tend to not make entertainment that is isolating. It's about the experience when you play a game and who you play it with. And that's why I do it.
Yeah, awesome. So how long have you been working on art on games?
A couple years now, I'd say 5 or 6. Before that, I was working as a comic artist, it was kind of a natural segue into games. I was already playing them a lot, doing side work, and then I just started doing it full time.
Yeah, awesome. How long have you been a gamer?
Oh gosh, as long as I've had a console, which is over 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your first console? What was your first console that you played on?
Well, the first console I owned was the PS2, but I had so many neighbors and cousins and the like that just had every console from before I could remember. So I've been growing up with them the entire time.
I think you did a great job emulating the 90s kind of aesthetic that the original game had. It looks great. It plays great. I played a demo right before I started this, so thank you so much, Nathan, and good work on the game. And that's, again, Nathan is the lead artist for Toe Jim and Earl Back in the Groove, and this is Steph with Love Thy Nerd.
Hey, Drew Dixon from Love Thy Nerd here with Mike Rose from No More Robots.
Indeed.
And you guys have some great games here at PAX South. Tell me a little bit about your lineup really quick.
Yes, so we have a downhill mountain biking game called Descenders, which has been out in early access since last February. It's coming out 1.0 soon with double the content in it and multiplayer as well, which is a big thing people have been asking for.
Online multiplayer?
Online multiplayer, yeah. I think we're aiming for about 6 people being able to play right now together. It's going to be like Destiny style, like lobby. You all join a lobby together, and then you can go out on runs together.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
We've got Hypnospace Outlaw, which we've got here on a giant CRT monitor, which is essentially like a dystopian 90s internet.
Yeah.
GeoCities gone wrong.
And you're essentially
an enforcer. You're like an admin of the internet,
right.
So you're enforcing the internet. You're making sure there's no harassment going on, no bullying, no copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff. And when you find it, you hit them with the banhammer and report them to the authorities, which is really nice for them. And then we've also got Family Man, which is essentially, I kind of describe it as like a Breaking Bad RPG.
Yeah.
So you start off and you owe a whole ton of money to the mob, and you can earn it through nice ways. You can just work at the burger place, you can help people out around town, you can go to the car wash, work there, or you can work for the mob to try and kind of pay the money off.
Yeah.
If you do that, you earn a lot more money, but then your family back home start to notice that you're not right, and it starts to put a strain on your family life. So there's a bit of a balance there.
You're providing for them, but you're also becoming a monster.
That's the problem, and there's even bits where, like, if you do enough bad things, your kid will sort of hear you talking in your sleep.
Yeah.
And will start to draw, like, pictures of daddy's dreams.
Oh, gosh.
On, like, it gets really grim.
Yeah.
It gets really grim. But we're hoping when it comes out, like, people will do runs, like, just totally good runs where they manage to scrape through and make it well.
Right.
And then we'll see how they compare to the horrible runs.
Yeah,
So it
that
should
sounds
be good.
cool. Yeah. And you've got a pretty diverse lineup here. Obviously, Hypnospace is really weird, but really like just brimming with nostalgia, I think.
Yeah, it really is.
And uniqueness. And then, of course, it sounds like Family Man is pretty dark. Descenders is just a fun, like really well-designed mountain biking kind of
Yeah.
sim. So,
The thing is, with Descenders, it was the first one that I sort of I announced No More Robots with Descenders. With that one, I felt like Descenders was a bit more like mainstream. It was a bit more like a game that a lot of people, and I've seen that. People say it's a mountain bike game. I know how to play a mountain bike game.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really good one for me to come out of the gate with.
Yeah.
And then, really, what I wanted to do was just publish weird games.
Yeah.
I like playing weird games.
Yeah.
And there's other publishers who do publish weird, like Devolver publishes a lot of weird stuff, and I love them for that. I wanted to publish weird stuff, and I wanted to be able to make a platform where that weird stuff can be played by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing that. I think with the games I'm publishing, because we got another game, Not Tonight, which is like a Brexit simulator, where you're sort of, you're a bouncer on a door, and that's done really well for us as well. That came out last summer. It's coming to Nintendo Switch very soon. Yeah. So again, it's a bit weird, right?
Yeah.
A bit weird that, but that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
And what's the point in me starting a publisher if I'm not gonna I don't want to follow the trends. It'll be boring for me.
Take some risks.
Yeah, it'll be super boring for me to just like, I'll just do another battle royale game or whatever.
Yeah,
so
right.
I want to just do weird stuff.
Yeah,
That's what I want
If
to
you
do.
could make a battle royale game that's somehow about Brexit, that would be interesting.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be maybe if all of the members of Parliament all annihilated each other, then maybe we could just start again and get rid of that whole thing happening. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, if I was going to do a battle royale game, obviously
somebody would watch this and
it would be Descenders, wouldn't it? Just 100 bikes, all just descending on each other.
That sounds awesome.
And like road rash kicking each other off the bikes.
Yeah, I like it. So I'm sold.
Easy.
That's
it. It's going to happen now.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have one, is there like a core value of No More Robots that you hope everybody gets from the games that you put out?
Yeah, there's a few different core values. I think one of the main ones is I am very much an advocate for just like equality and general fairness in video games because as I'm sure you're aware, video games as an industry is still quite far behind others in terms of realizing what our problems are. And so with a lot of our game, look at Not Tonight, a lot of people said to me beforehand, should you really be publishing a game that's about politics?
Yeah.
And I'm like, why not? Why would you not do that? Since it came out, we have had, you can imagine the comments from right-wing, sort of crazy people. And unfortunately, I have incredibly thick skin. So it just bounces off it. If anything, I absorb it and just enjoy it and just read the crazy comments.
It energizes you.
Yeah, it really does. But yeah, for me, just being able to get across, and we do a lot of, when we have successes with games, we do a lot of trying to give that back as well. So after Not Tonight came out, we gave a chunk of the proceeds from that to the Rescue Foundation and stuff like that. It's just trying to, I don't know, do some nice things, and hopefully, the bigger we get, the more nice things we'll be able to do, and the more we'll be able to expand that. So
that's great. Yeah. One last question I like to ask people in the industry: why do you make games? What drives you to do this?
I've just never known anything else, quite frankly. When I was a kid, all I did was play games, and obviously my parents told me you can't work in games, that's dumb. So that made me want to do it more. And for years that I was trying to get into games. Probably took me 3 or 4 years to finally break through a little bit into writing about games. And and they'd just be telling me, do you not think you should get a real job? And I was like, this is a real job, Mum! Get out of my room! And now...
Has she come around?
Yeah, she absolutely has. Now that it's like, oh, you've got a business now. Oh, you're a real man. It's nice. But it's just all I've ever known, and I think it's nice as well. A lot of people are starting to realize. A lot of people who didn't play video games originally, or maybe thought they were for children. A lot of people are starting to realize outside of games that maybe games is a real industry, and maybe it's something they should care about, especially when you throw numbers at them. When you start to tell them, yo, did you know the video game industry is bigger than the movie industry? When you start to throw things like that at people, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I should care. It's a nice place to be in, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your lineup here at PAX South. I'm really excited about Hypnospace Outlaw, and I've played a little bit of Descenders already and enjoyed it, and the Family Man sounds fantastic too. So I know Hypnospace comes out probably in the next 6 weeks or so.
Aiming for Hypnospace in end of February, start of March, sometime around that. Family Man's later this year, aiming for summer. Descenders, the multiplayer 1.0 launch, aiming for April. And Not Tonight on Switch and other consoles, probably aiming for about April, May with that as well.
Cool. Great. And what's the best place for people to find you online?
On Steam. Just search for No More Robots on Steam. Our games are on there. We're at nomorobots.io as well, if you want to see info.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Enjoyed it, Mike.
Thank you.
So Edgar, tell me your last name.
Castro.
Castro.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your role with Fabraz? Did I say it right?
Yeah, Fabraz. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a level designer and QA tester at Fabraz.
Okay. Cool. And you design levels on Slime Sun?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Slime Sun.
Cool. And so tell me about Slime Sun, and then we'll talk about Skellboy.
Okay.
What makes Slime Sun unique?
Unique. So I believe our approach to level design with having a unique mechanic with morphing, where you can slow down time and go through objects, and so with that we're able to let you adjust the difficulty at your own pace. So you can. We have things that encourage you to speedrun the game, like trophy time, meeting like those objectives. So having that mechanic play into like you being able to modulate your difficulty, I feel like that's a big part of Slime Sun.
Cool. Yeah, and then tell me about this new game that you guys are publishing, Skellboy. What's it about?
So Skellboy is it starts off with this evil magician that gets turned down by a princess that he asks out, and so he ends up raising the dead, but by accident he raises up a hero named Skippy, and so your goal as Skippy is to defeat the magician, and you're able to swap different parts of your body in order to do so.
Okay, cool. And it's got a really unique art style. It's really playful. Like, where did the I guess, or talk about the art style a little bit, I guess.
Okay, so the art style, I'm not the the artist or anything for it, but from what I know, the game started off as a 2D game, and they started attaching it to meshes and like extruding them, so it has that like cardboard look or feel to it, kind of like Paper Mario. I guess. That's the most I know with regard to art.
And in this game, you can you chop things, and it almost like cardboard pieces fall off is almost what it looks like. And then you can put those pieces on, like your skeleton guy, so you can change his feet to like bat feet or whatever else, and they give you different abilities, right? Or different limitations even sometimes.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Like the zombie head will actually subtract 1 health point from your max health. You get the bat shoes, which make you go faster. So there's different attributes attached to the different parts that you can swap.
Yeah, there's a Medusa head that messes up your control scheme. And you can't go the way you want to go exactly. You have to learn. Anyway, it was really playful and fun. I like that. Is there one underlying value that you hope players get out of the games you guys create and/or publish?
I think it's like the goofy fun. So from all the games we've made, it's always like it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's like focusing on just that vibe. Just having fun.
Cool.
Just goofy.
I like it. And then, why do you make games? What drives you to do what you do?
So, for me, I think part of it is like helping a vision be achieved. So like working together as a unit with my other two teammates, it's been really fun, like bouncing around ideas and just having something that people can enjoy. So
great. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks so much. I think it was great meeting you, and I enjoyed playing the game.
Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Steph with Love Thy Nerd, and I'm here with Erwin, who is the programmer with Ape Tribe Games for the game Dysfunction. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good, I'm doing well. How has PAX been for you this weekend?
It's been a very overwhelming experience, as you can expect, but it's been very, very positive. It's really great to have people play your game and have good things to say about it, so it's been great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what makes Dysfunction special?
So I think the reason it's special is because there aren't that many 2D top-down stealth action games. Most stealth action games are like AAA games or like side-scrollers, so I think we're sort of unique in that space. And a big thing that sets us apart is we have like a really interesting story where like your choices have consequences and those consequences matter. That's about it.
Absolutely. What do you hope that gamers will get from playing your game?
I hope that they'll think twice about the choices they make, because again, like, so for example, if you kill too many people, like various characters or factions in the game will like get mad at you, and like you get like a very different ending based on like the actions you choose. So I think people like will think before they like fire their gun, for example, or before they say certain like mean things to characters, or like if they act selfishly, that matters. So it's just like most video games, you just run and gun through it, and your actions don't really matter that much. So I hope this is just a different experience.
Kind of make the player think more about the consequences to their action.
Right, exactly, something like that.
Yeah, awesome. So you did programming for the game. How long have you been programming for games, or how long have you wanted to?
Right, so this is actually our first indie game, and I didn't go to school for programming in any capacity, or even making games. I'm an economics major. Yeah. It's been a hobby of mine for a while, but like this is like a new experience being full time. We've been working on this game for about a year and a half full time, and it's been kind of crazy. I mean, it's been a lot of like self-teaching myself like how to program and stuff like that, but it's been working out, so it's been really cool. That's
awesome. I demoed the game and it plays really smoothly. It's a blast to play. It's very challenging without being like too hard to where you can't get through it. So it's an excellent job. Well done.
Thank you so much. Really
You're welcome. You're welcome. So why do you make games?
I make games because I think it's a medium where you can really like express yourself. You can express yourself in a way that like movies and like movie directors and authors can express themselves, but also there's like that interactivity that like players can engage in your story and they can make choices, and like they will experience something that is different from watching a movie or reading a book because they have agency in like how they approach certain things. So like I love games for that reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of interactivity that goes into it, and a lot of you can really get immersed into the experience a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cliched term, but it's it exists for a reason.
It does. So when can people expect for Disjunction to come out?
So I hope it'll be out this summer of 2019. So like hopefully 6 to 8 months from now. But I mean, again, I'm an indie game developer. Delays happen all the time, so I'm not promising anything. But hopefully 6 to 8 months from now.
Yeah, that's excellent. So look for the game from Ape Tribe Games. Hopefully this summer, but whenever they can get it done and give us the best game that they can. Okay, this is Steph with Love Thy Nerd. Thank you again, Aaron, and thank you guys for watching.
One more thing, where can we find you on the internet?
Oh, okay. So where can we find you on the internet?
So we have a Steam page. You can wishlist us if you want. And we have a website. It's disjunction-game.com. And that's about it.
Okay, awesome. So look them up.
Perfect.
Hey, Drew Dixon here with Brett Pennings from Bullcut Studios, Studios.
You got it. You had it right the first time.
There's more than one.
I'm
just kidding.
There really isn't.
Yeah. And your new game is called Mage Quit.
Mage Quit, yep.
Yeah.
So it's a top-down wizard brawler for up to 10 players. You basically duke it out on an arena. First wizard to have the longest beard at the end of 9 rounds wins, and before every single round, you draft a new spell.
And as most people probably know this, but when you kill other wizards, your beard grows.
Your beard grows, exactly.
I mean, that's general nerd cultural knowledge, but so what do you hope players get out of their experience playing the game? Obviously, it's chaotic, it's frantic, it's pretty strategic though too, right?
It is also strategic, yeah. So the way we designed the game was kind of around anticipation. So sort of prediction, and then the reward, like the emotion that's rewarded for that is anticipation. So since it's a little bit like slower pace, you have to sort of like predict where your opponent's going to be when you cast your spell, and then you can also apply a curve to it, like a secret curve. Yeah. Did you guys notice that when you played? Okay.
I was terrible at it.
Yeah, it's an acquired skill for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can apply a curve, so there's some information hiding there. So basically, like if you can sort of predict where your opponent's going to be, and then they don't predict where you're throwing your spell, you hit them, and you get sort of a feedback reward that way.
Right, yeah. Is this your first game?
This is our first released game, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, and how long have you been working on this?
We've been working on it for 3 years, but both of us have been part-time on it the whole time. It's been like just a passion project, side project thing, but I'm going to be going full-time on it in February, so in a couple weeks.
Okay, cool. And do you have a goal of when? I mean, it's not early access now, right?
It's early access now on Steam, yes, but we're also going to be bringing it to the Nintendo Switch and the Xbox One.
Cool.
And we're aiming for Q3, but I think that's aggressive. So
Okay.
we'll
Cool. Yeah.
pending.
Well, yeah,
Release
cool.
date pending.
Great. And if you had to narrow down to one thing, what do your players get out of the experience of playing it?
Okay, yeah, that was the question you asked
Yeah.
earlier. I would say sort of, okay, it's the kind of game you would play with a group of friends, and you'd either piss them off or you guys would like have a good time. But it's kind of just like, it's that type of game. It's like Smash Bros, but less button mashy and more like noob friendly, I guess. Like new players can kind of get into it more.
Yeah.
So what you'd get out of it is, I guess, the same thing you'd get out of any kind of brawler, which is just kind of like a rush of competitive play. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and as you play through though, your abilities you kind of stack.
They do
them,
stack, yeah.
And then
and there's we have kind of like a negative feedback thing going on. So if you're doing well towards the beginning, the way that the spell drafting works is the person who's losing actually picks their spell first for the next round. So that way it tries to balance people out, and that way new players get to choose the same spells each time, so that they like once they get the hang of one set of spells, then they actually get good at playing that one set of spells. But then that means they're also doing better, so then they can't always pick those spells, and it forces them. It adds a lot of replayability because it forces them down different trees.
I like that about it. And then another kind of last question I like to ask game designers is, why do you make games? What drives you to do this?
That's a good question. I like seeing, I don't know, I think that games are the most powerful form of media that exists because it adds interactivity. It's basically a movie with interactivity, right? There's no fourth wall. So you have access to a spectrum of emotions that you wouldn't otherwise have access to if you were just making a film. Like camaraderie, rivalry, basically like guilt or mastery or weakness. All of those things you can't really get from film, but you can get from making games. And I like seeing people enjoy a thing that I made, and I think video games are the most extreme way to do that, I guess, is why I do it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we played it. It was great. I was terrible at it, but I was just terrible enough at it that I really want to play again and do better. So sometimes games are a blast when you're bad at them if you know you could do better. And I think you succeeded at that, so I'm excited about it, yeah.
I think also as long as you know exactly why you did poorly.
Right.
Some games, if you just die, it's not enjoyable.
Right, yeah, for sure. Well, this is great. Thanks so much, Brett.
Yeah, of
course. It was a good time. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to Humans of Gaming. So thankful that you would take the time to listen to these interviews. Next week, we should be back to our regularly scheduled program of long-form interviews with game designers and people in the games industry. Be sure to go rate and review our podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go follow our other podcasts. Go check them out. They're all on pretty much every platform you want to find podcasts. But we have the Pull List, which is our new comic book podcast, and of course Free Play, which delves into all areas of nerd culture, and also will keep you up to date on what's going on with Love Thy Nerd. They do a great job of that on that podcast as well. And plus, it's super entertaining. So go check all of that out. Go check out lovethynerd.com. We've got great articles and features up there. And yeah, follow us on all the social medias at Love Thy Nerd, and join our Facebook community. Just search for Love Thy Nerd Community. I know how it is. Some people, you don't like Facebook. I don't always like it either. But one thing I do really like about Facebook is Love Thy Nerd Community. It's one of the few places on Facebook that's generally almost always pretty rad. So go check it out. Be sure to join it. Be a part of our community. We'd love to get to know you more. I'd love to get to know you more. If you listen to this podcast, reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to hear what you think. That's it for us. We'll see you next week.